good example where a customer just wanted all the weeds ground in or just leveled in. When it gets smoothed out in this area, we just drag them underground and then put down a woven weed fabric under this whole area that's got weeds on it, and then cover this with about 3 inches of decomposed granite, half minus. I think he'd mentioned quarter minus actually. And we continue it back to the end of the building and not beyond that. And just from the building to about a foot from the wall there, so that the water can drain without washing away decomposed granite. We continue it down this way with the weed mat fabric. And we'll blend it into this grade that we've got on the left side. And continue it down. And we'll just kind of hug this plant area here, about a foot away from these plants. And this area just gets graded. There's no digging because that's a water line where that white stake is. And then we'll just match this grade right over here. And that's about it. All right, as you can see here, this power rake is an attachment that we use on the skid steer or the compact track loader. And this literally will just, as I put in the on-screen there, it will just emulsify all the weeds. It just turns them into nothing. And that's ideal on this particular property because there are so many weeds having grown between the time that we executed a contract with the owner and by the time we could get out there on our schedule. And this completely takes care of all those issues. And I've got Rusty over here. He's spraying water as I go to solve two issues. One of them is to kind of introduce some moisture to the soil and also to control the dust as I go along. Now, this particular property, we weren't disturbing enough soil to require a dust permit or anything like that, but I want to be respectful of the neighbors and the homeowner and make sure we're just not putting clouds of dust on their patios and in their backyards. So in this area, it's pretty dry, as in most of the Phoenix area, but this is out in way north Phoenix area, and it's just a lot of undisturbed soil, so the dust is easy to get, and it just helps control things a little better. The moisture in the soil also, as I go along, you'll see when I get ready to start compacting it with the tracks and grading, makes it a lot easier because the soil isn't just powdery and flying everywhere. Now this area along here was kind of tricky because we needed to stay about 12 to 16 inches away from this little rock that was placed along this property line, and that's to help kind of stop any soils that might leak through from the property on the right side there coming under the fence. But there is a lot of native rock in this soil, and as I go through the processes here, you'll see a ton of rocks, anywhere from 1.5 to 6 inches, get turned up. And although it doesn't hurt the power rake, it does jolt you when you're in the cab a little bit and make quite a bit of noise. But there you can start to see some of the rocks there that are maybe a couple inches in diameter. And as I go along, I'm just disturbing more and more. But this helps to kind of pre-grade and everything. And there again, you can see a little more water being put down. Which the dust, I mean, the property on the right, I don't want to put them in a cloud of dirt. We're going to be here 2.5, 3 days, so I want to be respectful of the neighborhood. Area too, on the right side, that water comes under that wall from the right and flows to the left as you're looking at it. So we have to create a berm along that wall there to kind of contain that water and make it go to the south. Now this one, as I note here on the screen, they wanted fabric to run up to where Rusty's standing right now and control the weeds in front of that garage door. I purposely stayed at least 6 to 8 inches away from that door, that concrete slab, for one main reason. I don't want to disturb or create any damage on the edge of his concrete slab under that door, because that's just not something that we want to happen ever. And the trick is to make sure that the grading falls away from that door towards about where the track loader is right now, and then the drainage will go to the left and downhill. This area here, that weed fabric, it's woven 8-ounce weed mat fabric that we use, and that fabric only holds a 1-year guarantee if you put any less than 3 inches of soil or protection over the top of the mat. With 3 inches or more, the manufacturer has a 50-year warranty on that fabric, because the UV rays will go through any soils on top of it and cause that fabric to break down. So here we've got actually to do a 3.5-inch drop on there and compact it to 3 inches, we have to bring in 100 tons of decomposed granite, which is 5 truckloads. And this, as you saw on screen there, that's the first load of 5 of them. They're hauling about 23 to about 24 tons per truck. They may get up to 25, but I'm not exactly sure. I think they're closer to 22 to 23. This fabric is really tough. It's made for road base, so you can put a lot of gravel, big rocks and everything on it to build up a gravel road. So we use that because it's heavy duty. And even though it's heavy duty, you got to be real careful when you start laying gravel on there initially, because when you turn, you start stretching it, it'll wrinkle up. And we've stapled this fabric down every edge about every 3 to 4 feet with 6-inch landscape stakes that we use. Are galvanized stakes. Problem is, some of those stakes, when they get in the ground, we don't know if it's just dirt or what, but we were hitting a lot of rocks at about 3 to 4 inches under that fabric, and it causes the staples to bend. So all we can do is bend them over flat onto the fabric. The staples, the main goal for the staples is to just keep it in place while we were putting the granite on there. Once it's on there, it's not going anywhere. So if you were to take and dig down later on down the road, you'd probably see some staples that are bent over, but that doesn't inhibit the function of the fabric. It's just, again, made just to hold it down. So you can see I'm driving on there, but I'm turning very gingerly initially until I get onto the heavier layer of granite, because I don't want to tear that fabric up. And the intent is just to kind of lay it out and then, dump as I go along. Right here on screen, you see I'm track compacting. I always get a full bucket. Well, I shouldn't say always, but most of the time, I try to get a full bucket of granite on there to add weight, because these compact track loaders have very little ground force. So you want to get all the weight in on the machine you can to compact that. And then Rusty has gone along and he will water that soil so that we've got some good compaction on that. And you can see by the marks of the tracks that it's pressing that granite down really nice. And this is just one of many times that I will track compact this. You'll see later on that I go back and forth several times. There again, you can see I try to come on straight and then turn after I get on that granite, just so I'm not tearing up what the guy spent all this time to try to stretch it out tight and staple it down. But it does get tricky sometimes to see out of there when you've got dust flying of how much is coming out of your bucket. And you try to get it close, but most of that's handled in the final rough grade. And you'll see I'll drop the bucket down and flat as I can and put it in float mode, and then just drag that back to kind of smooth it out as I'm going along, so that I have a good entrance ramp to get on there to dump the granite. And those buckets do a really super job of making things smooth. Here I'm just kind of going over with the guys exactly where this weed mat's going to go. And there's kind of a little island right about where that mat's laying over there on the left side, where the mat does not go up on there. It kind of comes to right where I'm showing. There's a strip that goes in there.
At the last, oh, there's 2 rows. Yeah, one row I want to go from now all the way around to the wash. That's the creek.
Where's the cutoff? Are we going all the way up?
No, I'm just going right to here.
That corner?
As you here, and here. The same here. It's just going to cut out.
With that cut out also?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's doing that pad right there?
Yeah, we're just doing this driveway area for him.
Just trying to work this pile and get as much as I can spread out here. I think I'm down to the last load of granite here, so I'm making sure that I'm using it as carefully as I can, so that I've got an even compacted layer over the entire property. And so as I'm going along, I'm also looking where my tracks are to help compact this soil every time I go across it as much as I possibly can. This is kind of the last areas that I need to put in soil just to get it up to 3 inches or more. And again, that's that cutout in the wall to the side property that the water actually flows through those knockouts in those blocks. And right where you see I'm dumping right now, there'll be a berm that runs left to right all along that edge, and that water flows to the right down to the next property. So some of it will, it's planned that it will come over that little berm and flow down to the right now as we're looking at this, to the wash area where the plants are that we're getting close to down there. But this is the back area of that outbuilding, or man cave as we call it. And that's a cool building. But this has to be track compacted very slowly, because I've only got about 1.5 feet on each side of that bucket. And for the obvious reasons, I don't want to hit that building or that block wall. That's not part of my cost that I'm anticipating repairing. So I'm trying to go as slow as I can. And even though this does have backup cameras, the inclination is to go slow and lean up and look at how close your bucket is, and to look backwards out the rear window to make sure you're not getting too close. But I do want to track compact this as much as I can, so that that soil doesn't go anywhere. And the owner and I discussed that rock you see on the right side, that about 12-inch strip, we wanted to keep as much of that original rock that was placed around this building intact without disturbing it, which we did a good job of. That pretty much ends up like it is, and everything flows nice and evenly to the left on the slope that was intended. Here I just start doing the rough grade, and I'll go back and forth this direction, and then as you see by the ridges, I had gone left to right prior to this, and this way I can kind of tell where my low spots are, so I can go in and drag into certain areas. So when I'm dragging back, you can see if it's smooth, it's pretty level as far as coverage. And then when I start seeing exposed areas where my track, I can see the track, the imprint from my tracks, I can tell that that's just a little bit low based on the width of that bucket. Now you can see on the right there that the low spots where the tracks revealed the footprint, that's kind of areas that I want to kind of double grade. And then I go on a crosshatch 45-degree angle from this whole property. Here I'm getting close to finishing. There's another low spot you can see where the tracks are revealed underneath. So I came in after this and I actually dropped a little more soil right in this area you're looking at right now into the bucket, because it was a bit low based on the level of that rock to the left, and we wanted it to be nice and clean for the owner so he didn't see this big, swale along the side of his fence. But this really does a fantastic job. That low area there is where I brought in some soil. You'll see right there that it made a big difference the way this looks too. Now, I think in the next scene here, I'm going to show you where I'm doing the 45-degree dragging on the crosshatch. But as I go out, I'm looking at the right over here, and I'm making sure all this right area is getting track compacted nice every time I go through it. And you can see there's not much gravel left, so I'm really looking around a lot while I'm driving along to figure out where I can use this remaining granite as efficiently as possible to make sure all my coverages are good. Big goal was to not disturb that tree on the right too. He didn't want us hitting that with the boom or the power rake. He wants to keep everything growing healthy without us damaging anything. This bottom left area, we were feathering that into this wash you can see on the left. And that got a little tricky because it goes from 3 inches deep to feathering into the natural grade. We obviously didn't want to disturb that natural area as much as possible. So we had to kind of take a little extra time along that plant edge and dig that down so that when we get 3 inches on it, it would be level with the natural wash grade on the left side. There you can see some of that mat's exposed right there. I just went across. So I'll bring in another 2 to 3 inches right on there and get that picked up. That other piece you saw on the left there, that's a scrap that's cut loose, and that's just laying on the dirt because we need to throw that away. But you can see this whole area is I'm starting to get this all graded out so I can get a good feel for the overall drainage and coverage that we've got so far. So going back and forth different directions really helps level all this out. Now this intentionally is not level all the way across. It falls from that block fence with the knockouts all the way down to this wash. So that's the natural drain grade that should be there. And I try to clean up this driveway as I'm going along, even though that's kind of the final step, but I want to make sure that we're not tearing up too much here, and I don't want a lot of wasted material sitting on his existing driveway. I want to make sure I use everything we hauled in so that the coverage is good. I don't know if you noticed, I just was flipping that bucket back. I do that subconsciously. I just don't want stuff spilling off that bucket as I'm driving along there. I want to intentionally place it where I want it to be, not have, 25% of the bucket falling out as I'm driving across this area. And there I'm starting to fill in this low area that's is low, so we got to get that covered up. And you can see I'm purposefully not just spinning around in one place because I don't want to tear everything up after I've spent all this time getting soil on there. So I'm doing a 3 or 4 point turn on most of these areas in the where I filled it in. I don't want to tear all that up. Just kind of eyeballing here and trying to decide where I need to get any excess materials off the previous graded driveway. And there's not much. We're getting close to where the driveway is supposed to be. The float on this machine is very finicky. Sometimes I'll hit the float button and it jacks the front end of that track loader up, and that's more a user error than anything. Different machines have different feel to them, so that's why you see that front end jump up from time to time. Just trying to, I don't think it does it on this time, but yep, you can see it jump right there. That's the float initiating after I hit the trigger. But that little area I just hauled in seems to be covering that up good down on the bottom area without creating a hump there that will cause drainage issues. I'm just trying to keep things clean on the existing drive so that I've got hopefully a little less work to do when I get finished here. He's got a paver company, as I said earlier, or I'll say at the end of the video I talk about that. He's got a paver company coming in from that gate out. He's putting all new paver driveway in, which is something at the current time that we do not do. We are just grading an excavation, but I don't want to leave this a mess because you can see the red lines there. That's a walkway. The pavers will come through that man gate there straight ahead and come back and curve up to his existing patio. So I just want to keep things clean that way. The other contractor that's coming in has a nice surface to work with. Here's where I'm starting the process of doing the 45-degree angle. Rough grading, well, getting actually close to finish grading here. And then once we finish all this cross grading that I'm doing, get everything dressed in the way I want it, we'll come back with a landscape rake and rake out all the grooves or any ridges you see there. So when we walk out, the new granite area will be nice and smooth for the owner. And I mentioned a couple times that the intention was for this owner to not have to fight weeds all the time. It was just getting out of control. And even though this is going to make a huge difference, I do mention that weeds can come in just through the wind or animals carrying them in, so there will be some weeds, but nothing like he was dealing with in the past. So now you can see that berm on the right that I'm intentionally not grading, because we will take a hand tamper and go along and tamp that ridge on the right to create that berm. And here I'm going the other 90 degrees from the other direction I was just doing. So you can start to see how smooth this starts to get. You may see a few track marks here and there, but nothing like it was. Now this right area too, I don't think I caught it on video, right there along the shadow. I brought in a little more soil into there, or a little more granite into there to get rid of that low area you see down there, but I do want some of that to remain low so that the water intentionally will run in that direction. This is typical too. The soils up here in North Phoenix or Rio Verde or Scottsdale in general are very typical of this soil here when you're doing finish. You saw when I was using the power rake, that's typical soil, yeah, with a little caliche in it and some clay. So that's nice to work with because you can shape it a little bit, but it does get a little messy. You got to be aware of what you're doing with it. And there again, you can see I'm not going up to that berm area when I'm doing any grading. I'm just trying to stay away from there. And there you can see that's almost finished grade there, but I will go through that and compact it one more time. I previously compacted it with a bucket of granite in there. This time I'm just using the compact track loader itself. And you can tell there's moisture in the soil by the way that the tracks are setting down just a little bit into the granite, I mean, which is exactly what we want. Right here, this is about as close as I want to get to this building. Just trying to use my left track to get that area that's not compacted yet. And you can tell I'm going real slow through here because property damage is something we do not want to experience and something the owner does not want to have to deal with either. So slow and steady wins the race whenever you're doing work like this. You want to be very intentional in every movement you make. The other thing you got to be careful of, I don't know if you just noticed when I was backing up there, I was going real slow because when you spin and turn, that bucket, if you're not paying attention, you're tearing down a block wall. And again, that's not something you want to deal with. So here's where I start dragging this low area down through in front of this garage door. And you'll see that track area there on the right. That's where I come in later. And I don't think I caught that on video right here. where I'm going to lay a little soil in there and get that dressed up real nice. And here I'm just doing some final cleanups along the edge of the existing driveway to get as much granite that the owner has paid for used for what it was intended to be used for. Not on his existing driveway. It's supposed to go in that new area in the back. So the calculation of the tonnage came out exactly what we needed. And that was, I'm not patting myself on the back, but that was measured. This was site measured 3 different times to make sure we had the exact amount of granite to properly cover everything. Again, full bucket. Now's when I'm going to start doing the final track compaction of this whole area. And I've got him over there watering everything, get some moisture in that soil to help compact this down. So he's kind of preceding me with everything I'm going to be going over. He's anticipating where I'm going next. And I'm just trying to wait for him to lay some moisture on there before I move. And this is the area I brought in a bunch of granite that I mentioned earlier. There was a low spot. Now that's nice and level along here, or you would see the machine dipping up and down had I not done that. And I'm staying away from that wall. It looks like it's close, but it's probably, I'm 1.5 feet away from it with the bucket when I get up to that end of the compaction. But you can really see what's going on when you look at your track marks. That's a good indicator. If you can't see those track marks and some moisture in it, you know you don't have enough moisture down there. See, he's pre-wetting the whole area. It'll dry out a little bit. It's about 100 and I think it was about 100 degrees this day. And this was in, I think it was the beginning of March. And we were having unseasonably hot weather. I mean, the guys, myself included, even though I'm in the cab, I got outside for about an hour and did some hand tamping, and I was just exhausted from the heat because the temperature changed so fast down here from the 70s to the hundreds, and nobody was expecting it. Yeah, that's compacting really nice through here. And just kind of taking my time. This is not a speed race through here. The intent is to let those tracks push that dirt, that granite down and compact it. So, although you can go, rapidly, you're not gonna go full speed. And you can notice how all those low spots, when you can see the whole area on the right, you can see how almost all those are gone now. That was from grading it a couple more times from the previous views that you saw. And I'm not gonna make you watch the whole thing. I'll cut the video here in a minute and we'll move forward, but I just want you to see the noticeable difference from my view while I'm going back and forth on what's been compacted and what hasn't. And even when I'm pulling up and turning to move over the width of the track, which is about 15 inches, I'm moving it very slowly because I don't want to tear that granite up. I want it to be nice and smooth when we leave here. Here's the final version. This used to be covered with 100 tons of granite, which we brought in here. And this is all covered with weed mat now. And 3.5 inches of decomposed granite, which we compacted down. And you can see it came out pretty darn nice, if I say so myself. So he shouldn't have any weed issues for quite a while. Now, of course, even though there's woven fabric here to stop weeds, there will be some weeds. And the reason I say that is weeds can blow in on the wind, they can be carried in by animals, carried in by birds. So there is a potential for weeds. You still have to keep an eye on it, but it will greatly reduce them. So this one, we have fabric going all the way down there. And he asked us to bring it all the way up to his garage door, which we did. Within 6 inches. And then back here we have a berm that runs along here because the property to the right flows water towards this one. Water catches this berm and then takes it behind me down to the south of the property. So that's what it looks like. And here we are walking back out from the property now. This is all done, all new decomposed granite, been raked, compacted, cleaned up the driveway when we left, everything's ready to go. So, hope you all have found some of this helpful. Hope you all have the luck of having nice customers like I did on this project. Couldn't have been a nicer guy. And couldn't say nice enough things about him. Professional from the very beginning. And he's actually got a paving company coming in here to do pavers right after we leave. So his projects continue.